Hey, everybody, Chris Armiger, Fort Myers Beach Fire. If you guys haven't met me before, I did the bachelor program, and now I'm in second and third class of my master's this semester. So to jump right in the case study, I'm going to kind of cheat and look through this because I have a terrible memory without PowerPoint or flashcards ahead of me. But to talk about the critique, I did the Station Nightclub fire from Rhode Island. Started at the very beginning. They talked about stage one of the disaster. And stage one of the disaster is a lot of the prevention planning phase of EM, if you consider it from that standpoint, or incident planning, or whatever term you want to use. But so they talk about the city manager and his or her role, really in kind of identifying who should be involved in the permitting and inspection of a building that was built probably in the 30s and then first occupied in the mid 40s, at least that I could find as a restaurant, and then in the 90s re-permitted to I'm sure it was an assembly for a nightclub. So there's a couple triggers that should have been established in their processes and in their systems of government early on. When you have somebody applying for a permit to open a nightclub, what likely should have happened is the city manager, that was his opportunity or her opportunity to get everybody on board and define expectations. They should have said, hey, things need to be legit, brought up to code, brought up to meet today's standards. Heads up, hey guys in the building department, girls in the building department, this was the building's 70 years old. And so we need to make sure that all the services for the building are adequate. Does it have proper construction to meet today's needs? That not so much like, are the walls going to hold up? That's not really the place of the city manager or even really the building department. More so like impact fee stuff. So like, does the plumbing, do the utilities, do the electrical stuff that the city provides to the building match today's needs? This is the opportunity to check it and bring it up to standards if it needs to be. And then also it would trigger not only, within the building department, ADA compliance, and that's a federal mandate. So there's really no excuse or way that they should have been able to get around that. And that would be with the submittal of blueprints for the remodel. And if it wasn't anything that would have required blueprints, new blueprints, like if they're not doing any major construction, it's just kind of repair. That's how a lot of guys get around it, is where they're repairing current things, or they're not doing anything to change the foundation or structure. At the very least, the building inspector should have at least checked the ADA compliance. Swing on the doors, windows, parking. The parking's a big thing. And then at the same time, you transition that. So there's some overlap with fire prevention. Was the point of getting it. So that at the same time should have cued the fire inspectors to make sure, not necessarily, again, it's tricky because it's not new construction, but because it's being re-permitted and it's going from a new occupancy type, so probably from a mercantile to an assembly, to make sure you get turn radius for the trucks. The trucks can get in and make a turn. It's within X amount of feet, whatever their codes are. For hydrants, it's got the right flow capabilities. Certainly that it's not sprinklered, and it would need to be to match the occupancy type. Again, so this is a great overlap where you have ADA and fire prevention, fire inspection, building code inspection, ADA, and fire all overlap. And that's little things: door swing, emergency lights, pull stations, parking's another one. You got to check the handicap spots, the amount of parking, and then you have swing for the truck. Those are little things and codes that overlap from one another that make sure everybody's kind of checking it all out at the same time. So that's kind of the prevention phase, or the opportunity to make sure stuff was right in stage one of the disaster. Stage two of the disaster goes on to talk about some more of the safety aspects, but everything kind of after. So one of the things I found with the second stage of the disaster, and like key issues coming from it, was really the lack of accountability from agencies and stuff like that. So I left a link on there in my references, a little thing from the Boston Globe, The building department was never mentioned civilly or criminally, nor was the fire department. Especially they cite in the article one inspector in particularly. But it goes on to talk about in stage 2 how what happened triggered some changes to the code, and from this, that point they had banned pyrotechnics in I think venues less than 300. And that code was Rhode Island Fire Code, and it was eventually adopted into the national code. And that was also in reference to pyrotechnics inside the building, pyrotechnics in assemblies, I think, with a rating of less than 300. And then so strategy. What I learned from it, so strategies is if you have anything like we do here on Fort Myers Beach, so if you have any variance to a code, that especially is like a life safety hazard, so the occupancies, when you read some of the articles, it says that it actually had a request for occupancy load twice. So it had gone from something in the 200s to something in the 300s, and from 300 to the 4 and change, it was finally granted on the second request to increase the occupancy load. But my point is, when you have people ask for variances like pyrotechnics, there's some conversation about whether the band was given special permission to have at that event or not. Those things, at least here, and I think it's a great practice, require an on-site, like fire watch. They don't necessarily have an inspector on site, but like, for instance, if that would have happened in my municipality or my jurisdiction, we would have had a fire watch. They would have had to have, pyrotechnics and exceeding the fire load for a special event or a special concert. They would have had to have fire watch. So having proactive inspectors, a proactive department that goes out and does a lot of district familiarization, window surveys kind of on Friday nights, those things are all great ways to prevent things like this from happening. But there's a great article in the Boston Globe. I have the link if you're curious, kind of like what happened after, what the outcomes were. Not just on the fire side, you can research it and you'll see that there was some code changes in 101. But other than that, check out that link on the Globe, and it'll kind of show you the criminal and the civil outcome of it, and it's interesting. You would think that maybe some people would spend some harsh time in jail, but they really didn't. There was, I think, the oldest brother, the owner, got 5 years, and then the other probation, and they pled guilty to 100 counts of manslaughter. So very interesting. But good luck this semester, and I'll see you guys later, and I'll read some of the other posts. Talk to you later.